Good morning. This is a great day for Martinsville and Henry County. We have, for the first time, the return home of our native son, General Dennis L. Vide. At this time, we'll have ask the party to be seated, and then we'll have opening comments by Dr. Angela Godwin.
Welcome to Patrick Henry Community College. We could not be more delighted than to have you here today. And let us all say from the Patrick Henry Community College family, the Patriot Nation, that we give the most sincere welcome to you, General Vide. You truly are both an aspiration for all of our young people and an inspiration to us all. And we cannot tell you how honored and humbled we are that you would choose this very special day to be with us here. Thank you all of our many, many special guests, our dignitaries. We're delighted to have you in the audience. And we want to say most of all, thank you and welcome to our veterans. We are honored that you would spend the day with us, and we're honored for the service that you provide to both the United States of America, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and to our community. Ladies and gentlemen, would you will you please rise and remain so for the posting of the colors, our national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the invocation. Post the colors.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, led in prayer by Chaplain Hagley.
Good morning. May we allow our hands to represent our need and desire to extend God's grace and mercy towards us this day forward as we reach out and hold our fellow citizens' hand that represents compassion and unity as a community. O gracious, eternal, almighty God, it is we, your children from the surrounding areas of Martinsville and Henry County, who have gathered again another year, touching and agreeing to petition you for your power and presence in this community and our country. We need your help and healing for your veterans and military today. Lord, years ago, our grateful nation in 1918, in the 11th hour of the 11th day, in the 11th month, gathered to end the war of all wars by signing a temporary truce called armistice. But because they realized the sacrifice and loss of our military among the citizens on foreign soil became too great to bear. So we have gathered here again because our veterans, military, and their families continue to go through so much that we continue to pray John Newton's song. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. 'Twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. For the airmen who soar our skies, we know where our help comes from. From the soldier who marches the grounds, we know where our help comes from. From the sailor who sails the seas, we know where our help comes from. For the Marine who goes beyond, we know where our help comes from. Today, O God, we continue to remember the women and men who have served in the greatest military and sacrificed over the years to bring freedom and peace to an entire world. We remember those from World War I, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Operation Just Cause in Panama, Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada, the Gulf War, NATO peacemaking efforts in Bosnia and Albania, Operation Iraqi Freedom in Iraq and Kuwait, and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Loving God, as we gather here today with our hearts full of the memories of our friends and comrades who served under arms in the wars of this great country. Bless, help, and keep our Commander-in-Chief, President Barack Hussein Obama, along with our Congress and civilian leaders. Bless, help, and keep General Dennis Vi, along with all the military leaders of our armed forces. Inspire and empower him as he speaks to us this morning as a native son. Lord, we ask that you will grace us with your presence, that you will help us in our pain, and that you will hear our prayers and have regard for our thoughts this day, because you have taught us to pray, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us for our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. To the Alpha and the Omega, to the author and finisher of our faith, to the only God and Redeemer who sacrificed his life for our liberty, let all say, Amen.
You may be seated. At this time, we'll have a POW MIA recognition by AMVETS. As we continue, find we must be always prepared to make adjustments. At this time, we'll have introduction of General by Commander of Home Delivery Post 78, Warren Sonny Richardson.
Good morning. General Dennis L. Vi is the 18th Commanding General of the U.S. Army Materiel Command, one of the largest commands in the U.S. Army, with nearly 65,000 soldiers and civilians, having an impact in all 50 U.S. states and 145 countries around the world. If a soldier shoots it, drives it, flies it, wear it, communicates with it, or eats it, the Army Materiel Command provides it, giving our nation's warfighters the decisive edge whenever and wherever they are needed. A native of Henry County, Virginia, he received his primary and secondary education in the Henry County school system and graduated from former George Washington Carver High School, Fieldale, Virginia. General Vi was first commissioned as a Signal Corps officer after graduating as a distinguished military graduate from Virginia State University. He went on to earn a master's degree from Boston University and also graduated from the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College and the Army War College. Throughout his career, he has held a variety of critical command and staff assignments to include recent responsibilities for the task force in Southeast Asia that removed the U.S. military's equipment from Iraq at the conclusion of operations. He has also commanded a battalion in the 82nd Airborne Division, a brigade in the 3rd Armed Corps, as well as organizations in Mannheim, Germany, and Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and served as a principal director on the Joint Staff in the Pentagon. General Vi is married to the former Linda A. Brown of Warsaw, Virginia. They have 2 sons, Brian and Bradley. General Vi holds the unique distinction of being the only Signal Corps officer in the U.S. Army history to achieve the rank of 4-star general. He is also a longtime member of the American Legion Homodilla Post 78. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure that I present to you this morning General Dennis L. Vi.
Thank you very much. As we say at home, Sonny, you outdone yourself this morning. You built me up pretty high there, so I hope I can deliver. Well, what a wonderful day. What a wonderful ceremony. How tremendously humbling it is for me. As I sat there and reflected and looked out on the audience today, the first time I came home, invited to speak, I was a major. About 22 years ago, I spoke on Memorial Day at Carver Memorial Gardens. And I routinely, over the years, have come back to speak. But of course, today is very special because it's the first time I've been able to come home and speak on Veterans Day, and clearly to come here as I represent Martinsville and Henry County and the Army Materiel Command and our nation as a 4-star general. It is truly, truly humbling for me, but it is very, very special. And I am so honored to be here today. So again, to Mr. Sonny Richardson, thank you so much for the very kind introduction and for this turnout today as I look out and all the wonderful people who are here today. I know you had a choice to be many locations today, and you chose to be here, and I am so grateful for that. As we all know, Henry County is a very special place, a very patriotic place. There are nearly 4,800 veterans who currently call this county home, which is slightly more than about 9 or 10% of the entire population. Nearly 1 out of every 10 residents serves in the military, and that number increases when you add all of its sons and daughters, like me, who are still serving today, 34 years. It's hard to believe I've been serving that long, but it doesn't seem that long. It really only seems like yesterday that I raised my hand to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. So it is a great deal for me to be here today, and I'm so grateful for the invitation. Before I go further, I'd like to recognize some of our community leaders in attendance today. Mayor Atkins, Kim Atkins, thank you for being here today. I also want to thank you how graciously you received Linda and me right after I was promoted when we were able to come back home. It was very thoughtful of you to do so, and thank you for your leadership. To Supervisor Deborah Buchanan. Deborah and I attended George Washington Carver High School together. She was 1 year ahead of me. I thank you for being so kind to me on television this morning. You never know on the other side of that screen what they're going to say. But she was very kind to me. I enjoyed very much the opportunity to spend some time with you this morning Thank you for all you do to represent this great community and tell the story about Martinsville and Henry County and about our veterans. To Delegate Danny Marshall, thank you for being here as well. And President Godwin, Angeline, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be on your beautiful campus here. As we drove in this morning, you can tell it's a special place, and that starts with the leadership here in administration and the faculty. So thank you as well. Please join me in recognizing all of these wonderful people. I'd also like to recognize all of our veterans organizations who are here today and members, American Veterans, AMVETS, American Legion Post 78 and 42, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 2820, 4637, and 10840, and also the Marine Corps League, Post 908, and also the Magna Vista High School Choir, performing the national anthem, and I know they headed on to Magna Vista. I plan to visit there a little later today. To Chaplain Dr. Lee Haywood, thank you again for the wonderful blessing today. To the Veterans Honor Guard for carrying our colors, our nation's colors. And then to the 29th Infantry Band, Division Band of the Virginia Army National Guard, thank you all for adding a special touch to today's ceremony and making this so special for our community's veterans. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome all of the veterans of our armed forces, our former soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, those who have served, those who are continuing to serve today, and in particular those who served in the Korean War, whom this community is especially honoring this year. So I'd like for all of you to stand, all veterans to please stand so we can recognize you today for your service. And certainly there's one veteran that I cannot go without recognizing, although I recognize all, and that's my high school teacher, Mr. Edward Fontaine. He's a veteran, and although I'm certain in 11th grade he didn't know I was going to go into the Army, but he was such and continues to be such an inspiration for me and for thousands others. So Mr. Fontaine, you have to stand because he takes credit, certainly for me being here today. And certainly his wife, Ruby. Thank you all so much for taking time to be here. More than 44,000 veterans of the Korean War call Virginia their home. We honor you, and we also remember those who fell in battle and didn't return home, including the 18 whose names are inscribed on the war memorial in front of the old courthouse on Main Street in Martinsville. Today we remember and honor their sacrifice, and we renew our pledge to never forget. Many of us were either not yet born or either too young to remember the events that led up to the Korean War. For many except these brave veterans whom we honor today and their families, the conflict is a distant memory, and the reasons it was fought may not be clearly known. Some may think it was simply a matter of the communist North invading the democratic South. But it was much more than that, much, much more. Our brave Korean War veterans fought to preserve freedom, not only on the Korean Peninsula, but throughout the world. Speaking to the nation from the Oval Office on April 11th, 1951, President Harry Truman told Americans why we were fighting in Korea. He said plainly, and I quote, "We're trying to prevent a third world war. The communists in the Kremlin are engaged in a monstrous conspiracy to stamp out freedom all over the world. If they were to succeed, the United States would be numbered among their principal victims. It must be clear to everyone that the United States cannot and will not sit idly by and await for foreign conquest, unquote. So as you've just heard, the stakes could not have been higher. The future of the world was on the line, and this direction was being decided by brave young men and women, many from here in Martinsville and Henry County, some just 18, 19, or 20 years old. And they fought in places like Bloody Ridge and Heartbreak Ridge, Old Baldy, and Pork Chop Hill. They fought in some of the most extreme conditions known in military history, through sweltering summers and freezing winters. They held the line at the Pusan perimeter. They landed in Incheon and surprised an overconfident enemy. And 64 years ago this month, they began the brutal fight in the Chosin Reservoir. After 3 years of hellish fighting, our troops stopped the communists from advancing, pushed them back across the 38th parallel, and have held them there ever since. During a ceremony last year marking the 60th anniversary of the Korean War armistice, President Obama spoke for all of us when he said, and I quote, "Korea was a victory. When 50 million South Koreans live in freedom, a vibrant democracy, one of the world's most dynamic economies, in stark contrast to the repression and poverty of the North. To our Korean War veterans, that's your legacy," unquote. I've had the opportunity to visit our troops in Korea several times throughout my career, and twice since I've commanded the Army Materiel Command, most recently in April of this year, and I can attest to the President's statement. What you achieved there was remarkable and lives on to this very day. In all, more than 5.7 million Americans served in the Korean War, and more than 33,000 gave the ultimate sacrifice. 7,875 are still missing, which is why we always remember them in ceremonies like this. And we will never stop our recovery efforts until every last American is accounted for. The Korean War veterans did not return home to ticker tape parades like those of World War II. As one veteran explained it, and I quote, "We just came home, took off our uniforms, and went to work," unquote. And that was about it. For many reasons, and for many it's known, regrettably, as the Forgotten War. But don't tell that to a Korean farmer who lives near the Punch Bowl, a huge volcanic crater where some of the war's furious fighting occurred. During last year's armistice ceremonies, that farmer told a newspaper reporter, and I quote, "Without America, everything would belong to North Korea. There would be no food, no life. We would be stuck in one country without communications with the outside world. But in South Korea, we love freedom and democracy. That's why we can develop so much," unquote. Don't say it's a forgotten war to the millions of Americans who have paid homage to their sacrifices at the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Nearly 20 million have visited the memorial since 2008, and more than 3.2 million visited last year. I've been there also. It's a very solemn location to go, as they were pictured as they were in battle in the Korean Peninsula, fighting to hold the freedoms we hold dear. And don't tell those in the United States Army that it's a forgotten war. We will always remember and honor our veterans no matter how many years pass. This fact is evident in the story of Chaplain Emil Capon, a chaplain from Kansas who served with the 1st Cavalry Division during combat operations 64 years ago this month during the Battle of Unsan. Allow me to show you a brief video telling Captain Capon's story.
There are many stories about heroes throughout our nation's history. Stories of extraordinary heroism, patriotism, and selfless service. Men and women who fought to protect our country and our way of life. This is the story of Chaplain Emil J. Capon. Chaplain Capon is assigned to Headquarters Company, 8th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division. Chinese Communist forces have encircled the battalion, outnumbering them. Chaplain Capon moved fearlessly from foxhole to foxhole under direct enemy fire in order to provide comfort and reassurance to outnumbered soldiers. He repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire to recover wounded men and drag them to safety. When he couldn't drag them, he dug shallow trenches to shield them from enemy fire. As Chinese forces closed in, Capon rejected several chances to escape, instead volunteering to stay behind and care for the wounded. He was taken as a prisoner of war by Chinese forces on November 2nd, 1950.
Chaplain Capon believed in the warrior ethos, never leave a soldier behind, and he believed that wherever the soldier goes, the chaplain shall also go and support.
Upon being captured, Chaplain Capon and other prisoners marched for several days towards prisoner of war camps. During the march, Capon led by example, caring for injured soldiers, refusing to take a break from carrying the stretchers of the wounded, all while encouraging others to do their part. Once inside prison camps, Chaplain Capon risked his life by sneaking around the camp after dark, foraging for food, caring for the sick, and encouraging his fellow soldiers to sustain their faith and their humanity. When the Chinese instituted a mandatory re-education program, Capon patiently and politely rejected every theory put forth by the instructors. Capon openly defied his captors by conducting a sunrise service on Easter morning, 1951. After suffering from the physical toll of his captivity, he was transferred to a substandard hospital where he died alone. Chaplain Capon died in captivity on May 23, 1951. Chaplain Emil J. Capon repeatedly risked his own life to save the lives of hundreds of fellow Americans. His extraordinary courage, faith, and leadership inspired thousands of prisoners to survive hellish conditions, resist enemy indoctrination, and retain their faith in God and country. His actions reflect the utmost credit upon him, the 1st Cavalry Division, and the United States Army.
When you think about Chaplain Capon, he's representative of the thousands of men and women who deployed in harm's way and are continue to be deployed in harm's way today, defending the freedoms we hold so dear as a great nation. He was initially awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, but because of his actions on November the 1st and 2nd, 1950, his award was upgraded to Medal of Honor last year. President Obama presented the medal to the chaplain's nephew during an emotional White House ceremony on April the 11th, 2013. Before presenting the award, the president shared a rather poignant detail of Chaplain Capon's story that illustrates the courage and loyalty among our soldiers. When the chaplain's unit was captured and he was being led away, the president said, and I quote, he saw another American wounded, unable to walk, laying in a ditch, defenseless. An enemy soldier was standing over him, a rifle aimed at his head, ready to shoot. And Father Compline marched over and pushed the enemy soldier aside. And then as the soldier watched, stunned, Father Kaplan carried that wounded soldier away, unquote. This story is just one example of the countless acts of valor that were committed every day on the battlefields of Korea. Their lives are an inspiration for us all, and their service and their sacrifices will never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in another round of applause for our Korean War veterans. And if any of you are here, please stand today. Before I conclude, I'd like to say a word about our newest veterans. During the last 13 years of war, many young men and women have followed in the footsteps of our Korean War veterans. They have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, sometimes 3, 4, and 5 separate times. In fact, since the attack on September 11th, more than 2.8 million Americans have served in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and our military has now been at war longer than any time in its history. Nearly 6,900 have died, and more than 52,000 have been wounded, and there may be countless acts of valor on the battlefield. They served honorably, they fought bravely, they sacrificed, and some even paid the ultimate sacrifice. And with each returning veteran, for each fallen hero, the bells of freedom continue to ring. We can honor their service and sacrifice by maintaining solemn observances like Veterans Day and Memorial Day, by teaching the next generation about patriotism and those who sacrifice everything for the freedoms they enjoy, by keeping the faith with our veterans and their families, and by keeping veterans organizations like the one here today vibrant and effective. Your support of these organizations means more than you ever will know. Again, to all of our veterans, past and present, thank you for your service and your sacrifice, and thank you for making the world a safer place. The United States today would not be the United States we enjoy without the service and sacrifice of the men and women who today volunteer to go into harm's way to defend the freedoms we hold dear, along with their families who sacrifice as well in supporting them. May God continue to bless our veterans and our soldiers deployed harm's way, also our sailors, our Marines, our airmen, and our Coast Guardsmen, the civilians who support them and their families, and may God continue to bless the great United States of America and our armed forces. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'll have closing remarks by our Veteran Service Organization Commander, Mark Thomas. And following that, we're going to change just a little bit, but it won't change any time. We're going to do the medley of service songs and then the benediction. As far as the medley of songs, for those that are not military, just like schools have their songs and all this, each service have its own song. And when the song is played, you will be able to find out who belonged to what particular service, because they will render the appropriate okay, so remarks by Commander Mark Thomas, then the medley of songs, and then the benediction.
Thank you, General Vi, for your remarks today. Before Captain Hagwood sends us on the road with our benediction, I want to thank General Vi, Mrs. Vi, for y'all taking time out of your itinerary to come visit with us today. I would like to thank Ms. Godwin and Patrick Henry Community College for providing this venue, and certainly a warm welcome we've received since we've been here. All the veteran service organizations, commanders that are here, I work with them monthly, we meet. And I've never met a more professional bunch of people that work volunteering to help other friends and veterans. Veterans Day is a very emotional day, and I want to thank every veteran that's here today. And please join us for some refreshments after the service. Captain Hagwood.
As the chaplain come for benediction, following the ceremony, the general will meet with the press over in this area here for a few minutes. Then he will meet with the recruiters in room 101, and then he will meet the general public. Thank you, Chaplain Hagley.
Thank you, General Vi, for such an inspirational speech to us all. May we stand for the benediction. May the strength of God sustain us. May the power of God preserve us. May the hands of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May the love of God go with us this day and forever. Amen.
This concludes our service. There'll be refreshments in the rear, to my right, back to the rear, and hang around, especially veterans. The general would like to shake your hand, and thank you.